very distinguished panel, which it gives me great privilege to present to you shortly. But before we do, I just wanted to make some initial remarks. And I wanted to start actually by paying dedication to two great public servants and former members of Parliament for whom this was an issue very, very close to their hearts and who we have sadly lost far too soon. I refer, of course, to Sir David Amess MP and to Bob Blizzard. Both were ardent campaigners for a ban on hunting trophies. They were great supporters of our campaign, and their enduring compassion and their dedication are already sorely missed. And I know that our thoughts are with their loved ones and all of their friends on all sides of the House. Now, people sometimes ask me, well, look, I mean, of all the issues out there, all the crises, the difficulties, why trophy hunting? Why pick on this one issue? Why do you consider it to be a problem? Well, I'll tell you why I think it's a problem. When trophy hunters are shooting an animal every 3 minutes and are on course to shoot 170 million animals this century purely for entertainment, that is a problem. When a man shoots 5,000 elephants, many with a semi-automatic rifle, and then says, and I quote, "The smile on my face is painful, the exhilaration is complete," that is a problem. When lions have collapsed from 200,000 in the 1970s to just 10,000 today, and yet the right for trophy hunters to bear arms and to shoot whatever they want whenever they want is somehow deemed to be more important by the gun lobby, that is a problem. And then people say to me, well, okay, I accept that, but why is it a British problem? Why is it a big deal here? Well, when polar bear trophy hunts are sold at auctions at trophy hunting industry events in order to finance campaigns to thwart a ban on trophies here in Britain, that is a British problem. When a British businessman from Gloucestershire wins a prize because he shot animals from over 125 different species, and he has those trophies at his home, that is a British problem. When a British woman from London is voted the world's top female trophy hunter because she shot 2 of the largest tusked elephants ever and one of the biggest ever lions known to humanity, that is a British problem. When a British dad boasts of taking his 9-year-old son on a trophy hunting holiday to Africa, and that boy shoots so many monkeys that he then earns the nickname of the sniper from other trophy hunters, that is a British problem. When a businessman from Chepstow confesses his obsession with shooting baboons, and when a man from Rugby boasts to me about how he'd grab a few beers at night and go out and have some fun shooting monkeys out of trees, that is a British problem. And when British trophy hunters boast about shooting cats out of trees with a bow and arrow, when they openly write about the horrific injuries that they perpetrate on animals, that is a British problem. And when a British-owned company has made millions in profits and broken world records for shooting leopards and shooting some of the world's rarest animals simply with a revolver or a bow and arrow, that is a British problem. And it's a British problem when campaigns to thwart popular will and the will of Parliament are financed by the American gun lobby and Russian allies of Vladimir Putin. Mr. Eustice, we have a problem. But we also have a solution. And indeed, it is thanks to the words of the Secretary of State, of the all-party parliamentary group, of the MPs and peers of every single political party in both houses, and of all of our supporters and all of our NGO friends who are here today, that we are able to see that there is a solution. And so it is with very great pleasure that I'm able to introduce our first and very distinguished speaker today, the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, the Right Honourable George Eustice, MP.
Thank you very much, Eduardo. And I'm afraid I've got to go to a committee. It's a bit of a packed day today, so that's why I'm a little bit late and why I'm going to have to take out a little bit early. But look, it's really, really great to be here. And I met His Excellency President Khama yesterday to hear about some of the great work that he did in Botswana and some of the lessons that were learned through the work that Botswana did in this particular space. And as you'll all know, there is currently a private members bill that is beginning its journey through Parliament that's got the full backing of the government, as we've been consistent both through our manifesto and since. We want to ban the import of hunting trophies from those species that are vulnerable or at risk, and that's exactly what this bill sets out to do. So I'm not sure if Henry Smith is here, I hope, but couldn't come. But Henry Smith's taking the bill forward. It's got full support of government. We'll be doing everything we can, working with other parties, and there's cross-party support for what we're trying to do to take this particular piece of legislation through. And I think it sends a very important signal to the rest of the world that we do want to take action in this space. We do want to discourage this, and that's precisely what we're doing with this piece of legislation. So we've obviously been helping and working with Henry to make sure that we can get the text of the bill in a good place to begin. It's relatively straightforward because we've been working on plans for this for some time as a government bill anyway, and I very much hope that we will shortly, later in this session, see the bill finally get onto the statute book with all the cross-party support that it's got, so that we can take a step forward in this area. So that's all I had to say, just by way of an update. But there are others here, I know, not least His Excellency President Khama, who I met yesterday, who's got a lot of experience in this space, and I'm sure you'll want to hear from him too. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Secretary of State, and I'd like to, laud you as if you like, a representative of the NGO community here for the extensive consultation that there has been with all parties, scientists, experts, wildlife people, and of course the NGO community, not just here but abroad. 44,000 entities and people were consulted as part of the DEFRA public consultation exercise on this. So this has been very carefully drafted because I know that the government wants this to win, and I know that it's not usual perhaps for NGOs in the animal welfare sector to say well done to the government, but I think this is one opportunity where we can absolutely show our support, and indeed we should do. So I wanted to express that thanks to you. Just before I introduce the next speaker, there are a number of public figures in Britain who are very, very supportive of this, and indeed many of them are sports personalities. I was just going to read a couple of supportive messages that we've received from them today, and I say this because, of course, often people in the trophy hunting world say that this is a sport, that what they engage in is a sport, and I think it's fair to say that most of us would not share that view. I have a message here from Tim Henman. Let's start with him because it's Wimbledon week, isn't it? So Tim Henman says, "Trophy hunters say what they do is sport. It is nothing of the kind. It is cruel, one-sided and barbaric. It has nothing to do with British values of fairness." Frank Bruno, world boxing champion. "Trophy hunting is wrong and should be banned. All political parties must join together and use some common sense and get this stopped immediately. Is there not enough hurt, pain, hardship and misery in the world already? Join me and others in ensuring we put a stop to it immediately. No excuses." Well, I think we can all share those sentiments. It is with great honour and it is a real privilege to be able to introduce our next speaker. He is somebody who doesn't just believe that banning trophy hunting should be done. He's somebody who has done it. He has banned trophy hunting. He's taken on the poachers. He's protected the elephants. He has brought back the rhinos. He helped create a flourishing photo safari industry, and he has provided thousands of jobs for people in remote rural parts of Africa as a result. And he's here in Britain this week talking to ministers, to members of Parliament, to peers, as well as to the media. And he really is an example of an inspiration to everyone on this issue. And I'm very, very proud to be able to meet him, let alone be able to introduce him. Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency Seretse Khama Ian Khama, former President of the Republic of Botswana.
Thank you very much. Let me just start by recognizing the Secretary of State, the Right Honourable George Eustice, and Honourable Member of Parliament, Sir Roger Gale, and all the other distinguished members of Parliament and the guests who are here today. Eduardo had indicated to me that I have a maximum of 10 minutes to speak, and it reminds me that when I first addressed the United Nations General Assembly, when I was Vice President, because the President then had sent me to represent me, I was told by my Minister of Foreign Affairs that I had 7 minutes to speak, and that so I was preparing, going over and over what I was going to be saying and timing myself to make sure it was 7 minutes. When I got to the UN, I was told there that I would find on the lectern 3 lights: green, orange and red. Green meant that fine, well, if the light was on, I could continue talking. When it lit orange or yellow, it meant I had 1 minute to go, and when the light went to red, that was it. I should stop speaking. So that's exactly what happened. It went green, yellow and red, and then I went and sat down. Later on, a gentleman called, you may remember the name, Colonel Gaddafi from Libya, spoke for 2 hours. And I was wondering whether those lights worked. Only to find out, my belief was that he was colorblind. That's why he let me say I would like to start off by commending all those. That wasn't part of the 10 minutes.
That's all right. It starts now. It starts now.
The case for a ban, the report which is being launched today, and having just heard what we did on the video, really I think everything was said there by her. So today really I'm just going to give you facts based on my own personal experience, spanning about 22 years from the time I was the commander of our army, and then vice president, and then to become president. It was around 1994 when I was the commander of the army. I received a call that a rhino had been poached, and could I send some troops up there to go and look for the poachers. We just come out at that time from a period of liberation struggle for some of the countries in the Southern African region. And 1994, some of you may remember, was the year that South Africa democratized. So we had been deployed along our borders, trying to secure them from what was going on at the time. And I dispatched a small contingent there to go and see what was going on. And the report I got back later on was that actually poaching was rife in that whole area. So from a small group of about 20 to 30 soldiers, as we went out and spread out and started deploying, as we were finding more and more evidence of poaching, we ended up having about 1,200 soldiers deployed in anti-poaching during that time. I obviously went to the president of the country then to say that I think it would be a wonderful idea that instead of the soldiers sitting back in the barracks undergoing training, that they are deployed in something which will have benefit for our nation. And fortunately, he agreed. When we deployed to these areas, we found plenty of vegetation for the animals to eat, plenty of surface water for the animals to drink, but no animals. And these were hunting areas. Even the hunting companies had abandoned those areas because animals were not evident anymore. And poachers were coming in all the time, trying to look for what they could. And that rhino was one of the last surviving rhinos in our country. And at another time, soon after that, I met with other people and we set up a rhino sanctuary in the middle of the country to go and recover what rhinos we could find and keep them there for safekeeping. We found 6 in the whole country, only 6 rhino. And the last one we found, the 6th one, was riddled with bullet holes. And it eventually succumbed to its injuries. So the idea was to have a sanctuary which we would once again breed rhinos, bring in rhinos which have been relocated from South Africa into Botswana to help us with that breeding program, and then to be able to, once we had got the poaching under control, be able to send them out again into the wild. So we imposed no hunting zones in that area. And I can remember when I went into those areas, to go and visit the troops out there, the occasional animal you came across was very skittish. As soon as it saw a person or a vehicle, it would run away, because that's what happened during the hunting times, where they knew that a human being they associated with death. But what was interesting was, after a couple of years, you started to see a change. The animals started moving back in. They assessed, they could sense that now things had changed, they were safe. And today, we can boast that those are some of the most viable photographic concessions that we have. You can drive there, the animals won't run away, tourists come in there and they see these animals. And we were able to change the situation around. So when I became president, because there were still problems in other parts of the country with poaching and hunting, I banned trophy hunting. And I have reasons for why I did that. And also declared that no animal would go extinct in Botswana. That was my pledge, to ensure that that would not happen. And when we realized the importance of tourism to any country, including right here, how important tourism. Our tourism is mainly wildlife based. So if you don't have any animals, you don't have any tourism. You won't have the same employment opportunities for the people. The revenues will not be the same. And we were able to demonstrate and prove that under photographic tourism, you generate far more opportunities for employment for the communities, far more revenue, and in fact tourism became the second biggest revenue earner for our country after diamonds. And during that period, we also won a lot of international awards. We were able then to reintroduce rhinos from those 5 or 6. In the last years that I was in office, rhinos were being brought in, because in South Africa, rhinos were being poached almost to the extent of plus minus 1,000 a year. And some of the owners of rhinos on their private game parks were happy to relocate rhinos to Botswana, because Botswana was now a safe haven and they felt confident that those rhinos would be safe whilst they were in our country. So we were able to also grow our cultural activities, where people benefited from photographic tourism, because there was interaction between the photographic tourism and the communities in the country. And it was also very apparent to us that photographic tourism had a big impact on reducing the poaching, because of the activity that you did. Because when you take tourists around the concession twice a day in vehicles with guides, the presence of people around the concession deterred the poachers. Whereas with a hunter, he comes in, grabs his animal, goes back to camp, and that's it for the rest of the day. And the poachers, and you wouldn't know whether it was a hunter or a poacher when you heard the guns going on. So why we banned hunting, the hunters became poachers. Don't believe these people, the hunters, when they talk about conservation or anything like that, that hunting is conservation. It's like saying that in order to promote democracy, you need dictatorship. It just doesn't. It's ridiculous. These people would exceed their quotas. They would bribe rangers to look the other way. And the people offering the hunters an experience, they wanted these people to come back the next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. And therefore they would go and ensure that they gave them the best possibility to shoot animals. And they shot more than they were supposed to. The other reason was that, apart from them contributing to the decline, and you saw poaching coming into hunting areas as well, was that they also shot the best specimen animals, the best lions, the best elephants, the ones with the biggest tuskers. And it was upsetting the structure and the genetic pool of those animals to a very great extent. So that also was undermining what we were trying to do in the country, in that part of things. The corruption that accompanies hunting is also something which we shouldn't lose sight of. And some of the people, I'm not saying all of them, but those who are engaged in lobbying do use the brown envelope with people who give the permission and make the decisions for policies on whether to hunt or not to hunt and where to hunt. That is a fact, and we shouldn't get. So all these people who come to you running around trying to lobby you, tell your colleagues, honorable members of parliament, tell your colleagues that they should just be aware and they would not want to be associated with such underhand ways. They used to have hunting concessions next to game reserves. These hunters would entice animals out of the game parks where they were protected by providing surface water and food for the animals to come, cross the boundary from the game parks into their areas and shoot them. So what's the purpose of having a game park? The purpose of having a game park is to protect animals. But if there are people out there who are enticing them to come out so they can shoot them, it just made a mockery of the whole thing. And hunting also demotivated our anti-poaching teams. Because if you say you're allowing hunting, you say to a soldier or whoever, go and walk day and night patrolling in the bush, even risking your life, snakes, elephants, lions and everything that came across them, to save a single elephant. But down the road, you've got hunters legally shooting elephants that these people you're telling to protect. So they just said, well, what's the point of putting effort into trying to stop people poach, when you've got hunters doing exactly the same thing as poachers, they just got different names. So it was also a demotivation for them to do that. So also with the communities, when you're trying to educate and make the communities aware of the importance of maintaining their resource, if they knew that you've got foreigners coming in and being allowed to hunt their animals, and then you say to them, you cannot hunt, it put in them a mindset that no, if they can do it, we can also do it. Why shouldn't we be able to do it? And you're telling them that no, hunting is all right. So you can't go to them one day and say, don't hunt. Which is, because if you allowed everyone to hunt, everything would disappear overnight. So that was another problem. So if you said no hunting, it meant no hunting for everybody, and we had to ensure that that was followed through. So if those who say that hunting benefits our communities, how will they benefit when there are no longer any more animals to hunt? Because they would have all been shot out. So just for their own narrow-minded, short-term gain of being able to go out and hunt and kill animals, they would try to throw in that excuse that no, you can do hunting because it's going to benefit the wildlife. So all the animals currently which are on the endangered list used not to be on the endangered list. Animals which are not on the endangered list now are going to become on the endangered list. So the figures that you heard, Eduardo, about 200,000 lions since the 1970s, now 10,000. That has been the trend among species all over the world. There's been roughly a 70% decline in wildlife since the 1970s. So how does hunting be conservation? If it is conservation, it's not working because there is hunting going on and we are still seeing massive declines. So I would like to, I don't have to appeal to the people of Britain to talk to their members of parliament. Whilst I've been here, I've been sharing the fact that really it is politicians who make the difference. I've been a conservationist. we have environmentalists, we have scientists. All they can do is make you aware about global warming. But if you as the politicians do not take the steps to put in place laws and policies and programs to reduce the harmful emissions, we're not going to, scientists can scream until they're blue in the face. Nothing's going to change. And the same with this particular thing. And we should not look at climate change in isolation. We are talking about saving the planet. And saving the planet includes nature, fauna and flora. And they are complementary. So we should ensure that we work together to bring this about. Now, I'm confident, having been here the last couple of days, starting with meeting the Right Honourable Secretary for State and other members of Parliament. It is so refreshing for me, especially when one follows British politics, to see how all parties are working together on this. And they're working together because they all recognize it's an emergency. I've met MPs from the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, Liberal Democrats, and Independents. And they're all solidly behind this. So I beg you, please don't drop the ball on this occasion, because it should have happened before now. So let's hope that when it does come for a second reading, it will be able to go through all the stages, the committee stage, the third reading, if that's what you have still in this country. I'm just basing on what we do, and I know we follow this the Westminster system, that on this occasion, but even the time between now and November, when it comes, there are going to be many, many more animals which are going to have been hunted. So this is an emergency, it's urgent. And I really implore you and to take a leadership role, which Britain, I know, has been doing in a number of areas in the international community, and set the example to show the rest of the world that what we are talking about, it's not acceptable. And I would really like to commend you in advance for what's going to happen in November. And I commend all of you for working together in this all-party parliamentary group in achieving the goals that we are setting out for ourselves. Finally, I would like to commend Eduardo. When I first got a notification from him, I thought I was going to Portugal, with a name like that. I would like to really commend you. I thought I was passionate about wildlife, but in the last few days when I've been with Eduardo, I cannot match his passion for wildlife and for others that I've met here. It's a wonderful cause. It's a wonderful thing you're doing. Please stick to it, and all the others who are part of this effort, I thank you very much. And I think I may have just beaten Gaddafi. Thank you very much.
What His Excellency has done has proved beyond any shadow of doubt that it can be done and that it is the right thing to do. And we have to take that example and blaze a trail with it around the world. I said I wanted to be brief, and I do. For a variety of reasons. One, it's hot and you don't want to hear too much, but I also want you to hear from Boniface, who has another story to tell from the Maasai Mara. It's important that you hear the real voice of Africa, not the lies that are propagated by those that try to hide their cowardice under the guise of conservation. To say to you, this has nothing to do with conservation at all. And I want to be very personal. It wouldn't have happened had I not been where I was this morning. But my daughter is here, and my grandson's school invited me to go to speak to them this morning, which I did. 3 classes of 10-year-olds. And I was asked by these young people, men and women, what do you do as a Member of Parliament? It's a pretty damn good question, actually. So, the answer, of course, is a lot of the wrong things. But this I do know. If we have any job at all in this building, it is to protect our world and promote our world and every living thing in it. Not for ourselves, but for those who follow after us. I shall be long dead by the time this campaign is over. That doesn't matter. But what does matter is that those 10-year-olds have the opportunity to go out around the world and see proud living animals in their own protected habitat, which we are at the moment busy destroying. So we have a huge job to do, and we're only just the beginning of it here. But I believe passionately that what we are doing is worthwhile, is right, is honourable, in sharp contrast to what the hunters are doing, and is very, very necessary indeed. So thank you for your support.
Thank you, Sir Roger, for your leadership and your commitment, and it is something that is truly recognised, not just in your party, not just amongst the NGO community, but something that I think is recognised on all sides of the House. So thank you again. Just before I introduce our next speaker, another message that we've received of support today. This is from Michael Parkinson. He says, "I was shocked to learn that in the 21st century, people, including British citizens, are still killing lions and elephants for sport. Our governments can do something about it now, starting with banning trophies, and I wholeheartedly encourage them to move forward with their plans." So thank you, Michael Parkinson. In the course of this campaign, and I'm sure in the months to come, MPs, lords, journalists will have heard from representatives and supporters of trophy hunting saying that, well, extraordinary things, that it's all about conservation, it's all about helping people in local communities. And of course we all know that that's nonsense. But there is nobody better, perhaps, to dispel that myth than our next speaker. Boniface Mpario is a senior elder of the Maasai people. He is one of Kenya's top wildlife experts. He's been a key player in Kenya's conservation success story. And as somebody who's had the privilege of knowing him for a couple of years, he's probably one of the nicest people you will ever meet in your life. Boniface Mpario, please.
Eduardo for inviting me over. And as you heard, my name is Boniface Mpario. I'm a Maasai senior elder, so to begin with, I shouldn't talk without something on my hands. So I'm a Maasai senior elder, born and brought up in Maasai Mara in southwestern Kenya. And also, I was a safari guide in the Maasai Mara for 10 years. And one thing I want to point out is that when I first heard the word trophy hunting, I thought of colonial Kenya. That was the time when people were running around killing animals in terms of sport or trophies. In my country, hunting was banned in 1977, and we went straight into photographing tourism. So later on, when I became a safari guide, and I learned that trophy hunting actually still goes on, I was gobsmacked. Because I don't know how you can associate hunting and conservation. How can you conserve something you're killing? You can't, because that is just, it doesn't work. And one thing is the values we have as Africans for nature. To us, everything in nature has got its own place. It's not about us using them as toys, using them as, stuff to, you call them marksmen. It's not about us to misuse it. It's about us as humans to look after them, benefit from them without destroying them. So people saying, conservation, trophy hunting is about conservation. It does not work like President Khama said. It's failing then, if that is, what is associated. When you talk to people who haven't been corrupted in Africa about what are the benefits of trophy hunting to the locals, the real answer is zero. The benefits of photographing tourism, one of them is standing right here in front of you. I was able to go through high school because of revenue generated by photographing tourism. It created a level field for all children who are in school because we pay school fees. Whether you come from a poor or rich family, you are able to get an education because you're getting sponsored by the Conservationist, which use photographic tourism. And then apart from that, if you create a situation where the locals only benefit from this wildlife when they are dead, then you are doing something extremely wrong. You create a system where they benefit when the wildlife are still alive. That is a success story there. So I'll give an example of the Maasai Mara Game Reserve. For those of you who have been there, it's 148 square kilometers. But the entire area, the conservancies around the Maasai Mara, which are owned, run and managed by the locals 100%. They generate income. They generate employment. I was a safari guide there for 10 years, and a teacher also teaching young Maasai boys who were originally supposed to go and become warriors and practice lion hunting. I told them to become safari guides, take people to take photographs, and leave these animals alive. I'll repeat like what President Khama said. If you go and take the best, the biggest elephant with the biggest tusk, the biggest lions with the big manes, you are reducing that gene pool so much to a point that what will be left behind are just bad genes, tuskless elephants, male with scurvy manes, and you are actually destroying that species by making sure that those who are supposed to breed and ensure that the progression of the species have been taken out. And then, at the moment, I want to say something that is happening as we speak. Trophy hunting does bring a lot of misery. When they created Serengeti in 1959, they had to move the locals who were in that area. And that was my tribe, the Maasai. They put them to around Ngorongoro and Loliondo. The trophy hunting companies exhaust their source from where they were allocated to hunt. Now there is no more there. And what they're doing is they go and lobby with the government. They go and corrupt those people who are corruptible. We need more land. And then the government, because of what happened, they are now evicting the Maasai tribe from Ngorongoro, Loliondo, by force to create more land for trophy hunting. As we speak, there are Maasai who have been buried 2 days ago, shot by police, getting evicted by force because they want the land for trophy hunting. What will happen when there is no more animals there? Will they start hunting each other? It's the big question, because you cannot say trophy hunting brings conservation, because it's not increasing the population of the animals in the hunting concession. It's reducing, and then you move on to another place. You move on to another place. That becomes like the wild-beast migration, which happened between Serengeti and Kenya, because they move following the grass, but what they leave behind helps to regenerate. Trophy hunting doesn't leave behind anything that regenerates. So please, please, I request and beg the British Parliament, pass this bill, ban trophy hunting. That is the only way you'll be helping these endangered species. I'll tell you a story of a rhino called Mary. I was a junior safari guide in 2002. We had a single female black rhino in the western part of the Mara. The poor thing was so lonely that she started following completely different species. A male eland, followed the male eland are tied to him got so distressed when he can't find this eland because she was just on her own. A few years later, thank goodness, a male crossover from the eastern part of the Mara. And to cut a long story short, now a very healthy population of black rhinos is do exist in the western part of the Mara. So nature, without us humans interfering with it, can recover. We give it time. Recently, we have been creating more conservation areas around the Maasai Mara. And the areas where were originally overgrazed and completely gone down have increased. The wildlife have increased in numbers. And this is all due to involving the local communities, let them benefit from this wildlife when they are alive, not say that they can benefit from them when they are dead. Nature tourism is the only thing, photographic tourism is the only way of conservation that will help keep the species, benefit the locals, and make sure that people from afar like yourselves, when you go there, you'll be able to see an animal existing in the wild, not in a zoo or not in some photograph. When I was growing up, I remember my grandmother telling me about rhinos. And in my head, I was trying to imagine, how do these animals look like? Only because of what happened, burning of hunting, that ensured that I actually saw a live, breathing rhino. So please, help us in conserving them by banning trophy hunting. Thank you very much.
To the witnesses from the speakers before me. I was asked by Eduardo to talk to you very briefly about the initiative we took in Belgium. I wrote the proposal after the sad celebration 5 years after the killing of the lion, Cecile. And I was wondering, because nothing changed in our country. Nothing changed after that. So I wrote a proposal to ask to the Belgian government to stop giving permits for all those animals on list A of the CITES treaty that are the most endangered species, and also 6 other species on list B, and that are species like African elephant, species like the rhino, species like the polar bear. We did a hearing in Parliament. We discussed a lot about the proposal, and it was very clear that after the hearing that I could find a majority in our Parliament, but there was a legal problem. There was a legal problem. Belgium is a member of the European Union, and the European Union does not allow that we change the law. So I had to change my proposal to a motion to ask the minister to take this decision. It's a problem your country doesn't have anymore, so that's already a big aid maybe. But I wrote the motion to ask the minister make a policy letter and end permits in Belgium for all those trophy hunters. Yeah, and the result was very encouraging for your country, because the motion was voted unanimously in Parliament. And I always stated that this is not a matter of right wing or left wing. This is a matter of how we deal with those endangered animals, and that was very clear. One of the reasons that there was a good support of this proposal was because of my proposal. There was an official opinion polling in Belgium, and we asked the Belgians what we would think about trophy hunting, and the figures were very clear. 91% of Belgium said we are opposed or strongly opposed to trophy hunting, and shocked and disgusted by legal import of hunting trophies. And 88% of our people, they supported a ban on any kind of trophy hunting. We do only the most endangered, but they even want that we go further. These figures were connected to all our political parties. And I can be very clear, there are very much political parties in Belgium, and every political party had a major of voters who said end this trophy hunting, the import of the trophies. To end, I will also say something about the lobbying process that was surrounded by this initiative. that I took. And in the beginning, the Belgian hunting lobby was not interested in the proposal. I think they even didn't believe that it would pass the Parliament. They didn't even respond to the questions we had. But when the proposal found a big majority in our Parliament, the context changed. It was very clear that our national association had been reprimanded by the international lobby. Because Belgium is a small country and we have not that many imports, and very few rich hunters are showing interest in this import from trophy hunting. But clearly the international lobby, they feared an effect on the political debate in other countries. And they tried to have the proposal postponed in the last minute. Something that didn't work out, but somehow they were right, because today I'm here and to say to your country, it is possible. It can be done. It can be done easily and quickly. We did it. We are the next country. There are also already some countries who did some legislation about this. We are the next one, and I hope, and I want to express this feeling very much to your as members of Parliament and all the others here in this room. I wish you a lot of success with this proposal and the voting in November. It can be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Kris. And very interesting about the opinion polling figures there, because they're very similar to what they are here. And we've been tracking opinion on this for a number of years, and approximately 9 out of 10 voters consistently say they want this to end. They want trophies to be banned from Britain. So it is something that the voters absolutely overwhelmingly support. Now, this is the anniversary, if you like, of the very unfortunate tragic killing of Cecil the Lion 7 years ago. Here we are still debating this issue. But in some ways, Cecil, that scandal, set us on the way to where we are now, on the brink of what should hopefully be a historic achievement. And the man who arguably kick-started that whole process is here with us today. So Dr. Adam Cruz was the man who actually raised the alert. He was the one who told the world about the killing of Cecil. And he went out there working very hard to get the media to take interest in it. And we owe him a great deal for where we are today. And he's somebody who's been working to look at the impacts of trophy hunting on local communities, on elephants and many species, and indeed into the somewhat unethical activities of the trophy hunting industry. So if there's somebody who knows the whole picture, it is our next speaker, Dr. Adam Cruz. Thank you.
I never intended for Cecil to be such a big story, because it was common. It was a common story I'd heard. I mean, I'd written about these things happening all the time. Lions were getting lured out of national parks, shot by trophy hunters. The big male, the breeding male was getting killed. These are all things that were happening all the time. Why Cecil suddenly became a global phenomenon, I don't know. But the good thing about that is that Cecil is representative of all these animals that continue to be shot in ways that are legal, but often in very nefarious ways. Now, so much has been said about trophy hunting already, and it's very difficult to sort of add anything more. But trophy hunters the proponents of trophy hunting have two major pillars that they base their argument on. That the money generated from trophy hunting goes A, to the conservation of species, and B, to the economic upliftment of impoverished rural communities living alongside wildlife. Now, I have spent more than a few decades looking at this, and in detail. I've recently published three detailed reports, one on Namibia, one in Botswana, and one on polar bears. And all of those reports say the same thing, and it's been saying the same thing that I've seen all along, in that not only does trophy hunting not provide any meaningful conservation benefits or economic upliftment for rural communities, but it does quite the opposite. It aids in the decline of species, and it continues the cycle of impoverishment to those rural communities. Now, 3 years ago, I was in Reno, the Safari Club International Convention. It's like the Disney World of trophy hunters. This massive convention, you can't believe. They've got weapons in there that you could invade a country. You've got stuffed animals of every species, of the most endangered species all over the place. But the thing that really struck me about that place was that the people there were generally middle-aged white males. There were no community representatives there. There were no Inuits. There was no one from Namibia. There was no one from Botswana. None of these communities that they supposedly benefit were actually there. Because these trophy hunters, deep down, they don't do anything. The other thing is I was doing an undercover work and I pretended I was a trophy hunter from Africa, which is a bit weird, because generally it comes from elsewhere to Africa. But I went to the polar bear stand. And I went up to the guy and I said, listen, I don't know anything about the Arctic. I don't know anything about polar bear. I want to shoot a polar bear. I mean, how difficult is this? And it's not difficult at all. You don't need any training or anything. You just, what we do is you just come, give us $30,000 US. We'll take you up there. We'll send the dogs out in the morning. We'll track the polar bear. We'll tire it out. We'll follow on snowmobiles. And when the bear is tired, it'll lie down. You can get off a snowmobile and you walk up to it and you can shoot it. You have a guaranteed 100% kill, they said. And what's more, you're going to get the biggest bears, because we only go for the biggest bears. So there's the other lie that we've heard already, that trophy hunters don't kill the breeding male, they don't kill the prime male, they don't kill, all those animals that are genetically important to the species. But what's the definition of a trophy? You want the best, you want the biggest. So that's what they go for, and that's what they do. Now to all of us, this is like really obvious. This is basic stuff. How is it possible that trophy hunting still exists in this day and age? How is it possible that governments buy into the narrative that trophy hunting provides meaningful upliftment to communities and assists with the conservation of species? How is it possible that intergovernmental organizations like UNEP, CITES, and the IUCN buy into this lie that trophy hunting does this? How is it possible that NGOs like WWF not only endorse trophy hunting as a conservation tool, but fund it, especially in places like Namibia, and certainly in places like Canada, where they support the trophy hunting of polar bears under the guise that it's a cultural necessity for the Inuits. Now, I did, and this is just my final point, based on these reports, I followed the money. I watched where this money actually goes. So, for example, you want to shoot an elephant in Botswana. It'll probably cost a hunter $50,000 US to shoot that elephant. He pays that directly to a hunting safari outfitter. That hunting safari outfitter, if he doesn't have his own private concession, if he's operating on community land, is obliged to give some of that money to the community. Around $10,000 to $12,000 US to that community. And if they do that, it gets given to a community trust, not the community members. The community trust, if there is no corruption involved at all and everything is above board, spends most of that money on staff salaries, on vehicles, vehicle maintenance, fuel, offices, office maintenance. At the end of the day, you're looking at a very, very small amount that should go to those communities. And then you divide the number of community members to what is left. And it works out that each community member gets less than 10 pence per person per year. And government tells those communities, you guys are cool, we don't have to do anything for you because you have got money from trophy hunting. These communities remain poor. In Botswana, in Namibia, in Zimbabwe, they are the poorest of the poor. And
4 or 5 decades of trophy hunting has done nothing to uplift those communities. And as we all know, and we've heard this, in that 50 years, as President, His Excellency Khama said, in 50 years we've seen a 70% decline in animals. Trophy hunting has been there from day one. Thank you.
To all of our wonderful speakers and to all of you for coming here today. And I wanted to conclude by sharing with you the real reasons trophy hunters do what they do. These are the actual words of trophy hunters, some of whom I've spoken to myself. Did you ever get up feeling like you just had to kill something? The deep, innate, primitive desire to hunt an animal is an urge that begs to be satisfied. It is calmed by a successful hunt when dopamine, that delicious secretion, flushes through the hunter's body. Nothing else can bring out the senses in you and make the blood run through your veins. My heart was pounding at an excessive pace. My clothes were soaked through. How the human body jolts to life when all senses are simultaneously alive. To say I was fevered with excitement would be a vast understatement. Or as a British trophy hunter from Sussex recently put it, it's like mainlining on heroin. You don't come off it very easily. We are going to have to be on our guard as this bill goes through. British hunters and the freight companies that they use are already looking at ways they can get around a ban. They're talking about getting their trophies flown into Frankfurt and then bringing them into Britain through the Eurotunnel. And I can tell you today that the industry is going to try to derail this bill. They're going to try and amend it and bring in something which they call a smart ban, but which is in effect a way to make a ban unenforceable. So when you hear the word smart ban, please know that it's the hunting industry that is behind it. So we have a problem, but as we've discussed today, we have a treatment. And hopefully soon we shall have a cure and we'll be able to end once and for all this disgraceful, wasteful and utterly barbaric thing which is called trophy hunting. Thank you again for coming. And just one last thing, if I may. So this evening there's going to be an exclusive world premiere of a documentary here in Parliament. It's an absolutely extraordinary film which shows the inner workings of the trophy hunting industry and how they get their way in parliaments, in the US Congress, despite the fact that 90% of people all over the world are disgusted by trophy hunting and want it to end. So it's going to be in the W1 room downstairs at 6 p.m. You are all most welcome. Thank you again.